24. I believe this is a 4-chapter section that kind of all stays together. The reason why I like it so much, why I was really getting excited, is because I think that a lot of the outside Christian world, probably a lot of people even inside here, inside this building as well, will use this section lightly as some sort of future to us event. And when you read it one time through, especially if you've not been through this class and have not been pounded away on what the heavens and earth means, it's really going to start, it would open it up to, oh yeah, it's a future event. It's a future event. It's a future for us event. Future for us here in this room event. And I'm going to show, I think there are many different ways in these few chapters to pinpoint it to the first century. Or I could say, no, this can only be talking about the first century AD, during that generation of Christ. And I'm going to be emphasizing those points a lot. The burdens for Judah and Jerusalem. And we've been going through all of these different burdens, these past 10 burdens, these last 10 plus chapters about all of these different nations. And I still stress, while the types, the stuff in and around Isaiah's time, we're going to get their judgments and whatever, I still think it's the ultimate warning is to the Jews. Hey, don't be like this, or you're going to end up like them. They were a rebellious people. They were a stubborn people. They were told that from the beginning. And in the end, Stephen is sitting there right before Stephen is killed. This is what he's preaching to them. Ye men who are stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears are always resisting the Holy Spirit. You are doing just as your fathers did. He's talking to the Jews here, right? They're the ones that killed him. Which one of the prophets did your fathers not persecute? They killed those who had previously announced the coming of the righteous one, and you have now become betrayers and murderers of him. Matthew 23, which I've been referencing almost every single day since class 1. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who have been sent to her. Stephen, how often I would have gathered your children together the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling. You're stubborn. You're stiff-necked. You just won't. Behold, your house is being left to you desolate. And that starts Isaiah 1:7. That's been the whole theme of Isaiah. Your house is going to be desolate. Your city is going to be desolate. Your land is going to be desolate. Your kingdom, your lineage, all of this is going to be destroyed, desolate, barren wasteland. He's talking about the Jews. Here, we are specifically talking about the utter, the complete destruction and desolation of the Jews. That happens there in the first century. This is not a Babylonian event, Assyrian event, whatever. This is specifically talking about the first century, and I'm going to show you that. This utter desolation and destruction. Starting verse 1. And we already get to familiar wording. Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. We're not talking literal globe, ball of dirt. We're not talking planet here. We're talking about the same earth that Isaiah has been talking about the whole time. We get into it a little more in the next chapter when we're going to reference back to Leviticus and Deuteronomy, when Moses is the first one that's sitting there saying, the earth are the people of the Jews. And how are you going to scatter if it's really about the earth and the earth is being destroyed? This is something to think about for these future to us theories. How are the inhabitants going to be scattered abroad? It doesn't really make any sense. The earth is being destroyed, gone away. We're gonna scatter the people. It's just weird to think about. Okay, but we know what the earth is in here. We've covered it almost every single class. The earth is the Jews, Judaism. It's the heavens were the leaders, the rulers. Give ear, O heavens. Give ear, ye rulers. Hear, O earth. Hear, ye people. He's talking about utterly destroying, scattering abroad these Jews and this Jewish system here. Daniel 12:7 says the same thing. He was going to scatter the power of the holy people. And Daniel, for those of you in my Daniel class, half of you were, I think the ASV says, break apart the power of the holy people. This is a 1st century AD event. These passages, this Daniel passage, this Isaiah 24 passage, and we're just getting started here, that should be concrete enough for you to say, okay, yeah, this is talking about the destruction of the Jews in the 1st century. There are much more concrete verses coming, but just one after the other. But they're prophesying the same event. The desolation and destruction of Judah and Jerusalem in the 1st century AD. Isaiah 19:2, which we covered, the Egypt chapter. Mark 13, Luke 21. Those two go together to help you understand what it's about. Daniel 9:27, Daniel 70 weeks. Hey, when is the sanctuary and the city going to be destroyed? Well, let me tell you. And he's saying the same stuff. They're all talking about the transition from Judaism to Christianity. After Christ's death, burial, and resurrection, it is the most important event of all time on planet Earth. Verse 2, and it shall be as with the people, so with the priests. Here we go, we're talking about the Jewish priests. We're not talking about some pagan priest. I'm not sure how their systems go. I'm not an expert on that stuff. I think Kevin might be a lot better at that than me, but we're talking about the Jewish priest here. We're talking about the regular people, and we're talking about the ruling class. The servant, the regular servant, the master, the maid, the mistress. All of these, you're going wherever you are when Jerusalem gets this judgment, nobody's going to escape it. The land shall be utterly emptied, completely emptied, utterly spoiled, for the Lord has spoken this word. And we know it's not talking about the types, the earlier types, because we have in 2 Kings, it's talking about, but the captain of the guard left the poor of the land back in Judah and Jerusalem. This is not this event. They're not the same. This one is utterly empty. This one, and the poor, the servant, the master, the maid, the mistress, all of them gone. Here, we're leaving the poor so that they can tend to the land for the Babylonian Empire. Verse 4. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. And again, that should be very weird to you if you're trying to make it literal. Why is a ball of dirt having emotions? Right? It doesn't make any sense. And it's fading away, it's languishing, it's kind of just dying, slowly dying. Well, maybe it is, I don't know. But the emotion part, that just doesn't make any sense. But keep it in context. What we've been talking about for 24 chapters now, the same thing. What's the book about? And Isaiah the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. The heavens and earth, verse 2. This is Isaiah 1. I keep going back to this introduction because it's so relevant. That was Isaiah 1:1. Isaiah 1:2. Hear, O heavens, give ear, O earth. And then verse 7, I'm going to destroy you. And then verse 9, hey, you're like Sodom and Gomorrah. You rulers of Sodom, verse 10, you people of Gomorrah, I'm going to destroy you because you stiff-necked and stubborn and you killed Christ. Didn't say that part in Isaiah, but he eventually will. He actually eventually does in 53. So, when you see these words, earth and world, and like especially the word world, depending upon what translation you're using, you've really got to go in and look at what was the original word. Otherwise, you're going to get confused. And this word world here is Tebel? Tebel? Do you know what the little hat's, how does that? It's not an English person. It's not the cosmos. It's not meaning the universe or the globe or the planet or whatever. It's just talking about their inhabitant place. Their inhabited place, the place of the inhabitants. It's not that end of the world type thing that what we would think of. It's very regional. It's very much just talking about the Jews, just like we've been talking the whole time. Earth is the people of Judah and Jerusalem. This is a prophecy on the Jews. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. They were being transitioned out. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do language. And we've covered some other verses where the Jews were the haughty ones. Hebrews 8:13, and he saith, a new covenant. So what is that? What's the new covenant? The New Testament. The New Testament and the church that comes with it, right? Not the old Mosaical one. And this is what the whole book of Hebrews is about. The transition from Judaism to Christianity. So when this new covenant comes, he's making the first one old. He's making this first system old. And it's going to start decaying and vanish away. That Judaism system is going to fade away. The ones that were being destroyed would be mourning. Anybody that actually survived. This is Judaism being removed in the first century. All of this system, the old law of Moses, the sacrifices, the temple, they're being removed. They're waxing old. They're ready to vanish away. That's what Hebrews is telling you. When we get to We'll get to Hebrews 12 here in a minute. The earth is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. See, it's talking about the people, right? Here you got a little bit of the place where they live and them. Because, and this is an important one, this one lets you know that this is strictly talking about the Jews only. This is not an end of the world thing. This is not something that applies to us today, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance. They have broken the everlasting covenant. Well, what's the everlasting covenant? Are we in the everlasting covenant? We are not. The everlasting covenant is the old law. It is defined by that multiple times. The Jews were the only ones that had the everlasting covenant. But let me read these first, and then I'll do this bottom part. Leviticus 24:8. Every Sabbath he shall set in order before the Lord continually, being taken from the children of Israel by an everlasting covenant. Who was given the everlasting covenant? The children of Israel, the Jews. Numbers 25, 13. And he shall have it, and his seed after him. Even the even the covenant of an everlasting priesthood. So who gets this everlasting clause in this covenant? The Jewish priests. 1 Chronicles 16:17. And hath conformed the same to Jacob for a law, and to Israel for an everlasting covenant. It's the Jews. Everything we've been studying has been about the Jews being destroyed and replaced. Because what is Isaiah's main point? Christ. What is Isaiah's nickname? Messianic prophet. And what happens when Christ comes? He is going to be a what unto the world? Isaiah's going to say it a bunch coming up. He's going to be a light unto the Gentile world. It's the point of his book.
You know, I've kind of heard this talked about before, and where the problem I've seen happen is people will say, when God makes a covenant, he does not change it. That when he says it's a covenant, that's the be-all, end-all to the end of time.
So, two things on that, okay? First of all is this word down here, olam. This is what's being used here. It doesn't mean eternal. It doesn't mean, from this point to infinity. That's the way we kind of think of everlasting. That's not the way they thought of this word olam. It means as long as it takes. As long as God has ordained it for. And we are told many times that they would be getting a new covenant. Well, if the old Jewish one is waxing old and ready to vanish away, and we're getting a new covenant, then clearly everlasting, olam, means something other than what our language says it means. Second, I think you will hear that a lot of times from Mormons. Mormons will say that. We had some come to our house in college, and again, my brother liked to do this. I didn't talk to them as much, but they came in and he knew their stuff better than,
They picked the wrong house.
They absolutely did. I felt sorry for him. And they came in, and he's baiting them because he knows their stuff better than they do. And he says, was it necessary to change the priesthood, change the covenant? Was it necessary to change the priesthood? And they're like, no. He let them talk for like a minute or so, and then he says, oh, well, what does this verse say? Somewhere in Hebrews, I forget where it is. Oh, for it was necessary to change the priesthood. Like directly opposite of what they were saying. Everybody kind of misunderstands the word everlasting, and they want to be in that line of this everlasting covenant. They want to feel special about it instead of really get down and figure out what's going on. So that whole Mormon religion is based on that.
Mormons, like Catholics, have their own books. I mean, they may look at the Bible a little bit. They have their own
I don't
books.
think they do.
Not really.
They don't look at the Bible.
Well, they have the Book of Mormon, and
Yeah, that's not the Bible. Don't look at that one, yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. They have their own books, so do Catholics.
So on covenants in the Old Testament time frame, there is, most of us would think of covenant as a contract. And that's not wrong, but a contract is a two-party contract by default, right? Meaning that, one person gives, one person receives, both sign it, and it goes. I'm oversimplifying,
Yeah.
okay? There are lots of different covenants at that time because of a lot of the ways that one nation would conquer another and then would become like the dominant kingdom over them, and they'd pay tribute and stuff like that. When those were going down, those were called, in historical terminology, the suzerain and vassal covenants, which they're kind of written one-sided. The strong country ends up writing it over. The covenants that God ends up giving look more like those. And so my point here is to say that there's nuance to like the types of covenants, and the ones that God ends up giving have this kind of I'll keep it as long as you keep your part.
Yes, we get into that a lot next chapter.
And so an everlasting covenant, God could have fulfilled his promises, but if you didn't keep your end, it nullifies the covenant then. So,
That's right before, that's in Deuteronomy 28, 31, something like that. We cover that in the next chapter, exactly what you're saying.
cool.
Yes, that conditional covenant type thing.
But if you watch TV today,
Don't do that.
well, I know, but we've got to.
Unless it's
help them.
AGT and we're gonna watch Cody Lee.
Yeah.
But you know what
Go ahead.
I'm hearing. 'Cause
Oh
you're
yeah,
hearing-
and that's exactly why I'm covering it.
Exactly.
Because I know what you're hearing, I know it is out there, so that forever, that everlasting, the 1,000 years, these don't mean what we think they mean. You would have to place yourself back in this Hebrew understanding of these sayings and vocabulary and all of this stuff. So I don't know that the translation is all that good. I'm not going to argue it or whatever. But just know that it's easy to see that the Old Testament, the Mosaical covenant, which we are not under anymore, which is done, nailed to the cross, that one is what it's talking about here. Okay? So, verse 5, and this was a big one. Who's breaking the everlasting covenant? Not us. We didn't get it. We didn't get that covenant. That's the Jews that are breaking that. This chapter is about the Jews, the earth, the heavens and earth, were being removed so that that which was shaken, Hebrews 12, 26, 27, 28, so that which was shaken, removed, that mountain, that unmovable mountain could come take its place, the Church of Christ. Revelation 21, verse 1. For I, John, saw new heavens and new earth, for the first heaven and first earth will pass away, and there was no more separation of Jew and Gentile. There's no more sea. It's all saying the same thing. It's the second biggest event of all time. Austin, you got a question?
No.
Okay. I thought you might have been looking at your fingernails. Here's another good one. This curse. This is another really good one here. To help you really understand when the when. And remember in my intro class, it's not so much about what's going to happen, the type, antitypes, all that. I was going to be really focusing on the when. Because that's where all the controversy is in all of this stuff. Is it a future to us event? Is it Jerusalem 70 AD event? Is it some sort of Rome, destruction of Rome theory? Talking about the harlot here. When's the harlot going to get her judgment there in Revelation? That's what we're doing. So I focus a lot on these passages that really give you the clues on when. Here's another one. The one before was a good one. Here's another one. Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth. They that dwell therein are desolate. And we've known over and over again the Jews are going to be desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few would be left. The Jews were transgressing God's laws. They were the ones breaking the everlasting covenant. He's going to set a curse on them. He's going to burn them as the chaff, which we've heard multiple times already in here. He was going to leave them desolate. Isaiah 1:7, Matthew 23, all the Daniel 9:27, all the other places. Few would be remaining alive. You find,
The remnant.
The remnant is so important. And this sentiment is found in Isaiah when talking about figurative Babylon. And again, that's not even close to being accurate for literal Babylon, because when literal Babylon was destroyed, almost nobody was killed, right? They just kept going as a city. They kept their rulers in place. Belshazzar dies. Maybe some other people do that were not consequential. But for the most part, everybody lives. Cyrus was not mass murdered. Cyrus. Inside joke. Kind of. Malachi. And I've said it before again, Malachi is fantastic to study. It's the same topic, but the really, really good thing about Malachi on the when, focusing on the when here, all the types are done. Malachi is after the types. Whereas Isaiah is writing before the types. He's not writing before the Egyptian type. That one's already happened. Babylonian one hasn't happened yet. So when you read Malachi, you're like, well, you can't be talking about something happening in Isaiah's day. What's the point of that? Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet. Who's that?
John the Baptist.
John the Baptist, we all know that. Before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. John the Baptist is going to come before that great and terrible day of the Lord, and we've already gone over Malachi in here. That was a full 1-hour class. Not going to rehash that. That was about the destruction of the Jews, transition to Christianity there in the first century. So when he's going to send John the Baptist and destroy for that great terrible day of the Lord, he's going to smite the earth with a curse. It's the same thing. Isaiah is saying the same thing. Hey, when you guys who broke my everlasting covenant, you earth, I'm going to burn you up as the chaff. I'm going to leave your house desolate. Matthew chapter 23. This is talking about Jerusalem, 1st century AD. This is talking about the transition from Judaism to Christianity. Here's a good one. This is not so much a time one, as much you can get there, but it's not as direct as the previous verse or two. The new wine mourneth, the vine languisheth. What's the vine? Is it some plant that's super special and important? Or can you just read the big, bold, yellow, black letters? What's the vine?
This is the house of Israel.
House of Israel. And we know that. We even sing that in our songs, right? We're the new version of the house of Israel. I'm the vine. You're the branches of the vine. You've got the chapter in Romans, what is it, 11 to 9. Where is that chapter? Where they're grafted in. All of that. You have the parable of the vineyard. You have Isaiah 5. And you have Matthew 21 are the exact same story going on. Matthew's not original. Well, it's Christ talking here. He's referencing back to Isaiah. Isaiah said it 700 years earlier. Starts the parable of the vineyard. The Jews, the house of Israel, they were sent, the owner of the vineyard, they were sent servants. And the stewards of that kingdom, that vineyard, they kept killing them. Eventually this guy, this owner in this parable, God, the Father, sends his son, they kill him too. And just keep going in Matthew chapter 21, because that's what's going on here. That's what Isaiah's talking about. Same story, same context, same people, first century event. The kingdom will be taken away from you, you fruitless vine, you fruitless fig tree. I'm going to give it to the Gentiles. I'm going to take away this kingdom, and I'm going to take away, and Christ is saying it cryptically, kind of, in the parable words. And then at the end, my favorite verse in that chapter, and the chief priests and Pharisees were like, he's talking about us. And they perceived that he spake of them. They perceived correctly. I think I'm through all the good stuff, so we can do the last part is easy. 8 and 9, kind of an easy part. The Jews would lose all joy. The city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up. No man may come in. It's not talking about the entire planet. It's not talking about the end of time. It's talking about when Jerusalem is removed, that which waxeth old and fadeth away, they were going to be in the process of receiving the new kingdom there in Hebrews chapter 12. Isaiah 24:11. There's a crying for wine in the streets. Not, hey, we're going to have a party type wine. Because there's a verse somewhere in Deuteronomy, I want to say it's in 14, 17, 19, something like that, where it says, sell all your possessions, go buy your wine, your strong drink, come together, we're all going to have a good time and worship the Lord. This is not that context. This is not. There is a crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. This is bad stuff. The mirth of the land is gone. Because they were going to be in the sorrow from this desolation and destruction. The city is left desolation, smitten with destruction. What city? Jerusalem. The one of the people that break the everlasting covenant. The one where the heavens and earth lived. The priests. The Levitical priest. This book, this whole book, is about the destruction of Judah and Jerusalem. And the transition right after that to Christianity. Yes, there are some types that talk about stuff in Isaiah's time. But the main point is this first century stuff. And you just keep saying in your mind, Court did not give Isaiah the nickname, the Messianic prophet. It's been around for probably way longer than I've been alive. Messianic prophecies right and left here. Every one of them, every chapter, or not every chapter, but there's a couple of historical chapters, which we're basically ignoring. Isaiah 1:7. What city is left desolate? Desolation? Talking to the Jews here. Hear ye, rulers, ye heavens, give ear, O earth. Hey, you Jews, you're like Sodom and Gomorrah. Your country is left desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land, your strangers, the strangers from afar, whose language you would not understand, Latin, they were devoured in your presence. It is desolate, it is overthrown by strangers. This is Rome in 70 AD, destroying the Jews, removing Judaism as God's system. He's replacing it with the new covenant, which we had a couple verses back. Isaiah 24:13. When thus it shall be, which I translated to as in that day, and in that day. In the midst of the land among the people there shall be a shaking of an olive tree as the gleaning of grapes when the vintage is done. And I think this is a kind of a good thing. Because what you have here is you have this harvest thing, and the good fruit is being gathered. They're the ones praising God and rejoicing. They're on the good side. They're not the sorrowful ones from the previous verses. And then what does it say? In 14 and 15, the gathered ones would be spared from and taken out of this city of confusion. They would leave the earth, the Levant, Israel area, and they would go to the Gentile world. They're not leaving dirt and going to live in the water. Don't take it literal. I think some translations will have like the fire or the east or something like that. Do I have it on here?
It's
24:15. Oh no, it says in the isles of the sea. This is the part. Glorify ye the Lord in the east. Let me read the Malachi verse first, because it's saying the exact same thing, and we know what Malachi is about. For from the rising of the sun, even into the going down of the same, all the way from east to west, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. This is the Great Commission. We are spreading the gospel. And in every place, incense shall be offered unto my name. Every place, Christians would be on this part of the map.
That's the whole map, Court.
Oh, thank you. For my name shall be great among the heathen. What is Isaiah 24:15? Glorify ye the Lord in the east, even the name of the Lord God of Israel in Gentile land, in the isles of the sea. My name shall be great among the heathen. You're saying the same thing. We're not doing this in 700 BC. We're not spreading Judaism to the planet. We're not spreading Judaism to the map. We're spreading the gospel of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That's what was getting spread to the Gentiles. He would become a light unto the Gentiles. I keep saying that, we're not there yet. We'll get to those chapters. You'll see. This is the dispersion. This is the dispersion that we talked about several classes ago. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to the elect who are sojourners of the dispersion. Why were they fleeing Jerusalem? There were 3 reasons given in the Bible. Can y'all remember them? Yeah, this was before Christmas that we covered this. So, what are the 3 reasons to flee Jerusalem? Why is this dispersion happening?
Persecution.
Persecution. Escape the persecution. They were dispersing away from the persecution. Second, got it right here. The Great Commission. We just talked about it. Right? Take the Gospels to the world. And the third one in Revelation says, get out of her, my people. Be not partakers of her sins. Those were your reasons. But persecution and, I guess, eventually upcoming destruction. I guess that's technically 2 things, but all the bad, immediate physical danger that you were in by staying there.
I was gonna say, like, a lot of the stuff that we've read in the previous verses up to this point really sounds like the Jewish revolt from
Of
70,
66 through 70.
yeah, that ends in 70, that eventually culminates in like 130, the final Jewish revolt. The Romans completely destroyed Judah, not just Jerusalem, but
Right.
the entire area, depopulate it on
And
purpose.
Hadrian builds a Roman city
Exactly.
because he's tired of them coming back.
And on the ashes of Jerusalem, they build a city dedicated to Jupiter.
Yes.
And
Did they put that where the temple was?
the things I've read is just ashes of Jerusalem. So I don't know exactly.
But I've not been there, but that temple, Mount Moriah, that's where they would have put it.
More than likely.
I want to look into that.
Yeah,
I'm very
but,
curious
I
about
mean,
that.
like the Romans went through and mass murdered any Jews that were left in the entirety of Judah.
Judah, not just the city.
Not just the city, no. And that was the final revolt it ended in like 130.
Under Hadrian.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
My understanding is that when Jerusalem is destroyed under Josephus, he records like 1.1 million. Other historians debate the number a little bit. Whatever, it's a lot.
It is.
And then the 2 subsequent ones were 500,000 and 600,000 or somewhere.
Yeah.
More Jews died
Yeah.
by the Romans' hand.
Yeah. This just seems like this, and granted, maybe we've been hinting at it before, but these 24 so far, at least the first half, is really, like, it seems to be very specific to the actual Jewish revolts that are going to get them completely decimated.
Utterly
kicked out.
desolated.
Yeah, I mean, and this is 700 years, 800 years before it happens.
Yeah. Like a lot of his prophecies, he's
Yeah.
been talking about Christ a whole bunch
Yeah.
already. We know that's 700 years
And
old.
just because it's significant in the sense that we know the temple was destroyed in 70,
Mhm.
fulfilling what Jesus said about the temple, and he's like, and they're like, hey, the temple is still standing. He's like, not for long, right?
Yeah.
But then when we look at the history of Judaism, though, with that destruction of the second temple, the Jews don't sacrifice anymore.
Nope.
It turns all to rabbinic Judaism and Torah study, and that's where we get the Talmud and all the rabbinic stuff, and it turns people away, or even the Jews away, from reading the Old Testament.
Isaiah.
And it keeps them from reading Isaiah.
Leviticus. Do they read
Everything.
Leviticus?
Like they're like, well, read us first before you read. Yeah, and if you ask Jews today, they'll read the Talmud. They don't read the Old Testament.
Right.
And it's funny how all these rabbis are like, don't read that. We got it for you. Don't read that other
That
stuff.
sounds like Catholicism to me.
And well,
Hey, let's put it in Latin,
We're all
so you
Christians,
can't
so
read
that-
it.
But and the fact that Jesus dies, and then shortly thereafter, Jews quit sacrificing because God is like, well, the final sacrifice has been made. And
This is Hebrews. This is
And
book of
no,
Hebrews.
no, it's just,
Yeah.
it's still mind-boggling that he wrote this, 800 years before, and then it's reinforced through things like Malachi and stuff
Yeah.
later, and the Jews are still like, whatever.
Stiff-necked and stubborn people.
Exactly, there you go.
Yeah, that's why I led the class
Yeah.
with that. 16. The treacherous dealers have dealt treacherously. This is the Jews, Zephaniah 3:4. We went through the whole book of Zephaniah. Our prophets are light and treacherous. To the Levites there in Malachi, back to Malachi, which we've covered. Why do we deal treacherously, every man against his brother, by profaning the covenant of our fathers? Judah hath dealt treacherously. Who's the one being treacherous here? It's the house of Israel. It's Judah and Jerusalem. The same target. Malachi 2:2, back up a little bit. Uh-oh, we get this curse again. We've already covered that, but Malachi's saying the same thing. Again, not to keep referring back to the class we've already had. Watch the YouTube video on the Malachi class if you want to rehash Malachi there. Fear and pit, the snare, they're upon thee, O inhabitants of the earth, O Jews. These hunting terms. You're going to be caught. You're not going to be able to escape it. Verse 18 combines the Jews being the target with the removal of Judaism in Hebrews chapter 12. The foundations of the earth do shake. Right, and this is a big verse. In that very second class that I ever did in here on Isaiah, we spent it on the heavens and earth. And this probably unlocked, this Hebrews 12, 26 through 28, probably unlocks a lot of this for a lot of people. It unlocks it from having to make your mind say that it's literal. His voice then shook the earth. But now he hath promised, saying, yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also the heaven. And this word, yet once more, the shaking, signifieth the removing. I'm removing Judaism, the rulers and people of the earth and the heavens and earth there, as of things that are made, so that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. Daniel chapter 2, the church of the firstborn. The church of Christ, Christianity, was going to come in and replace it. Isaiah chapter 24 is talking about this transition from Judaism to Christianity. He's shaking it up. He's shaking up Judaism, meaning he's removing Judaism. And when Judaism is removed, what takes its place? When the harlot is divorced, the bride, the new bride, takes its place. This is a Revelation topic. Oh, we're going to have fun here. This might take the rest of the class, because this is where people are going to be like, that's not what I've heard. Let me tell you a story real quick. I think I've told it in here before. When I was teaching my class down in Taylor, I was teaching the high school kids, and I was going over 2 Peter 3. And I said, now watch, if you ever hear a sermon in the Church of Christ on 2 Peter 3, they'll cover verse 10. They will cover verse 11. They'll have a great time with verse 12. And then they'll jump to verse 14. They will not cover verse 13. I said, I've never heard it my entire life. That was Sunday morning at 9:30. At 10:30, we all go into the auditorium for the sermon. And guess what the preacher is doing it on? 2 Peter 3. My bunch of high school kids that you would think are gonna, well, we didn't have phones, so they weren't on their phones then. They are paying attention like crazy, and they didn't care about the sermon. They just wanted to see if he would skip 13. So he's reading, he reads 10, blah, 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 verse 11, blah, 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 12. And then when you look at 14, as soon as he went from 12 to 14, 8 heads go like this. They look back at me and I was like, turn around, you're going to get me in trouble in more ways than one. He skipped it because they can't explain it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Isaiah 24:19. The earth is utterly, completely broken down. Judaism is being removed completely. It is being desolate. The city is being left desolate. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moving exceedingly. The earth, the people of Judah and Jerusalem, this Jewish system, this kingdom, was being utterly broken. It was being shaken and removed. 2 Peter 3, verse 2 says, that ye may be mindful of the words which were spoken before by the holy prophets. Who's he talking about? He's talking about Isaiah. Think about when Isaiah said, hey, I'm going to shake the earth. I'm going to leave it desolate. I'm going to dissolve it. Think about when Isaiah said that. We're about to go through this. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief of the night, which you're thinking right now, oh, this isn't no time. Because you've been told that your whole life. In the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. The Jewish leaders, not the literal air or a place where God lives. Doesn't make any sense. And the elements shall melt with fervent heat. We've already seen earlier they're going to be burned in Isaiah. Isaiah 24:6, they would be burned. I even put it up there. The earth also and the works therein shall be burned up, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved. They're removing, it's fading away, it's vanishing, it's being clean dissolved. Judaism is going away. Looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for a new heavens and a new earth, new leaders, a new system, a Christian system. For I, John, saw new heavens and a new earth, for the first heavens and first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. These heavens and earth that Moses and Isaiah nonstop talk about, Malachi, Joel, do I have all the different things up here? Maybe it's another slide. What's this promise? Behold, the days come that I will make a new covenant. And when we get to the 60s, we're going to have fun with that. This new covenant. I will call them by a new name. Right? We know that to be Christians, not Jews anymore. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand and bring them out of Egypt. Not the Mosaical covenant. I'm not talking about the Mosaical covenant. Which my covenant they break. Same stuff we've been talking about. Although I was the husband, I took care of them. I tried to gather you, but you would not. Matthew chapter 23. For they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest, said the Lord, for I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. What's going to happen in this new covenant, in the Christian covenant? Good stuff. Hebrews 6 through 13 is directly quoting Jeremiah 31. I'm not going to read it because I just did. And he saith, a new covenant. He hath made the first old, now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. What is all that we've been talking about today about? Transition from Judaism to Christianity. We look for this new heavens and new earth. This new system, the kingdom in which they were receiving right then in the book of Hebrews. John is talking about I saw new heavens and new earth, for the first heaven and first earth were passed away. Judaism, gone. Christianity, coming in. The leaders. The Son of Righteousness, S-U-N of righteousness, would be the new S-O-N. Sorry. The S-O-N would be the new S-U-N, the Son of Righteousness. The Son of God would be the Son of Righteousness. I said it backwards to start. He's the new heavens. They didn't need, in Revelation 21, kind of down at the end, they didn't need the light of the heavens anymore, because the Lamb would lighten the way, would be the light thereof. He's going to show them the path. They don't need these Old Testament leaders that were being darkened, being put out, falling from power. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. I already said all that stuff. 20. The Jews would fall utterly. During this antitype, first century AD time, they would not rise. It will come to pass in that day that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, the kings of the earth. Same thing as Zephaniah 1:8. And it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice, which we figured out was Christ, that I will punish the princes and the king's children, and all as are such clothed with strange apparel. Isaiah 24, Zephaniah 1, same stuff. Same topic. Same words. Same event. Last verse here. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners, gathered in the pit. They're going to be visited with this punishment. The moon shall be confounded, the sun ashamed. Literal? Come on. That's ridiculous. Is the sun's going to be up there, this big giant ball of fire and gas? Oh no, I'm so embarrassed. That's just dumb. Right? It sounds silly when you say it out loud. No, but the Jewish leaders, the king, the high priest, all of this stuff, this is a big problem. They are falling from power. When the Lord of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem and before his ancients gloriously. This is talking about the new Mount Zion. It's not talking about literal old Zion. This is talking about the new Jerusalem, the spiritual one, the house not made with hands. Joel 2, we've been over, talks about this sun and moon being darkened, turning to blood. Acts chapter 2, which quotes Joel. Joel 3:16 is another one. You can read all of these. We've already read them more than once. Matthew 24. The heavens and earth of the sun, moon, and stars would fall. Malachi 4:5, same thing. This is the sixth seal. It's just the sixth seal in Revelation. Lo, there was a great earthquake, the shaking of the earth. He was going to remove Judaism. Man, do I sound like a broken record to y'all? Because I do to me. I feel like I just say the same thing over and over again. And as the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, which is more along the lines with these verses than it is the ashamed and confounded, but it's the same basic principle. The Jewish leaders would be punished. They would cease to give their light when Christ came and replaced them. In the time of my sacrifice, I would punish the leaders of the Jews. This new Jerusalem, is that 21, 23, Christ is replacing that old sun and moon. They would be ashamed. It just makes no sense if it's literal. Don't let your mind go literal on the heavens and earth. Use what Moses and Isaiah were saying it was repeatedly. And it's pretty clear. That was a good time.
Thank you.